Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another great edition of the WSE Lounge. I am your host, as always, Mr. Brian Vaughn. I want to welcome my guest at this time. He's done about everything in the business there is to do. He's also a photographer for the band Poison and Def Leppard. And he's a former WWE, WCW wrestler. Please welcome my guest at this time, Bobby Starr.
What's happening, guys?
Hey, how are you, Bobby?
I'm good. I'm not an official photographer for Poison and Def Leppard. I shoot rock bands all over the country.
Okay.
But the tour that I'm on right now is the Poison Def Leppard Tesla tour.
Okay, I got you. He is he shoots rock bands all over the country. He's not an official photographer for them, but he does shoot, pictures and stuff. So, and that's very interesting. I mean, Rick Michaels. I mean, let's start with Rick Michaels. I mean, he's I'm not Rick Michaels. I'm sorry, Brett Michaels. Let's start with Brett Michaels. Yeah, that was a blooper. That was a blooper right there, folks. You never know what's gonna happen on. You never know what's gonna happen on a live interview. Rick Michaels is actually a wrestler, and he actually designs costumes for different wrestler stuff. But Brett Michaels is in the band Poison. Y'all know who Brett Michaels is, and I'll tell you what, that's an honor. I mean, that's got to be an honor for you to be, shooting photography for Brett Michaels and the band Poison, much less Def Leppard.
Well, I started out with the whole wrestling thing. Brett's a big wrestling fan, and so is Bobby Dahl. When I went to high school, a friend of mine's mother owned a leather shop. And I'll give you an idea who it is. If you've ever seen the movie with Patrick Swayze, the surfing movie or whatever, in the movie there's a very clean shot of him in this T-shirt, and they kept it on the shop for a while. It said Hideaway Leather on the back of it. It's from here in Baltimore, and some of their crew had stopped through and bought some shirts that ended up in the movie. But Bobby Dahl was friends with a guy named Gypsy, who was with the tour years ago, who was friends with them. I got introduced to them backstage one night in Newport, Virginia, and have been a fan my whole life. And then with the whole wrestling thing, it was kind of neat, because it's like, it's two different kinds of people, because like anyone out there that's listening to wrestlers, most of them will understand. If you're one of the new guys, you're still starstruck by everybody. But when you've been in the business, I've been in 28 years, or going on 29 years, it's like, they're no different than I am. They put their pants on the same way, they pay their mortgage the same way. It's just one guy got a little bit luckier than the next or had more talent than the next. And it's like running with them guys, I'm going to tell you what, bro, like I sent you a couple of samples through the IM on Facebook before we started this.
Uh-huh.
In the last 10 days, they killed me.
Man.
It's just it's one party after another from town to town. And so far tonight, they're on their way up. They have a show in Grand Rapids, Michigan tonight at Van Andel Arena. But we were in Baltimore Friday, Long Island, New York Saturday. The tour started on, tour started a week ago today. It was Monday in New Hampshire. And every show's been a sold out house. That's one thing that WWE can't say. Because it's like, you know, if you see their house shows, their house show business is kind of shit lately. But what do you call it? Of course, Monday Night Raw.
Low attendance record.
Well, they pay for those houses. If they don't sell the tickets, you be guaranteed you're not going to see empty seats on Monday Night Raw ever. And you know, dating back to when I was on Raw, it was the same way. And Center Stage in Atlanta, they gave those tickets away and had problems doing that at sometimes. It all depends on what's going on in the business at the time. And if people are like, I don't know, if the people aren't drawn into what you're doing, they're just not going to come, whether it's free or whether they got to pay for it.
That's true. That's true. And you know, you brought up a great point there. You know, my friend, he's a dirt bike racer, and he wants to make it pro one day. But he's a dirt bike racer, and he watches a dirt bike race. And I had him on the show one time, interviewed him, and I was watching the dirt bike racing the other night over the weekend, and I said, man, I said, look at this audience on there. He said, I know. He said a lot more than wrestling. I said, yeah. I said, it's like the whole audience is like sold out. And, you know, I mean, I was amazed, you know, at all the fans. But, I mean, it's the same way in NASCAR racing, too. I mean, you got so many fans out there that, you know, go to that. And like you said, if you're putting on something and, you know, people are not interested in it, people are not attached to it, then they're not going to pay good money to see it, or they're not going to come out to see it no matter what it is.
Well, that's the number one thing that I personally think. And you have to understand, after the years, I've kind of become hard to a lot of things with as far as wrestling goes, but the independent promoters, they just don't get it. They don't get it. They think it's Wayne's World. Let's go on Facebook and have all our wrestlers post and repost the posters and blah, blah. No. Get your ass out on the street, hang up the posters, get newspaper ads, maybe buy yourself a little 30-second TV spot for Monday Night Raw. Here in Baltimore, Maryland Championship Wrestling, they've done it all, and they've had them all. The only people I think that they haven't had is like Hulk Hogan, because they've had Flair, they've had the Horsemen, they've had Magnum, they got Rey Mysterio Jr. This Saturday night. If anybody out there is listening in the local area in Baltimore, Joppa, Maryland, Saturday night, Rey Mysterio Jr. They got Melena, the chick that used to manage M&M. She is their women's champion. She'll be in town.
Oh, wow.
I mean, the whole thing is if you don't spend money, you're not going to make money. You know,
That's true.
I understand it's hard and it's expensive. Some of these guys are out of their data minds with the prices they ask. But you have to understand that when you've been out on the road, like when I was with WCW, most of my career I spent down there in the South. You know, we were never home. When I came home, the only thing I wanted to do was sleep. If you're going to wake me up and make me go to another show, it's not that I don't love the fans, and it's not that I don't want to see them perform. I've been on the road, you know, 10, 12, 14 straight days. If I'm coming, I'm going to get paid, you know. And then you get to the show and you introduce and you look around and you can almost tell the kids that aren't getting paid jack shit, that's what you're going to get from them. You know, I mean, they're going to go out there. You got a couple of guys on the show that are getting paid $20, which is destroying the business, because if you don't demand to be paid, you're never going to get paid. But for $20 a head, they'll go out there and go through tables and throw light tubes at each other and thumbtacks and all this craziness, which is not pro wrestling. The United States in general has to be re-educated to what professional wrestling is. It's like ECW took it on a sidetrack, and for ECW, that was fine. But here's a reality check. All these little independent promoters all over the country, you're not ECW, and even if you bring in one or two of their guys, you have an ECW match. You're still not ECW, and never will be. You know, a lot of very good friends of mine worked there. I came into the business, forever ago, a lifetime ago, with Axel Rotten and Joey Maggs, who was on WCW all the time. And it was like, you know, when Axel went up there, he got cornholed into that because he did stuff with Ian Rotten, and then people thought, oh, he's the hardcore icon. But Axel could technically wrestle better than anybody on the show, but they didn't want to see that because once you start doing that kind of stuff, that's what they want to see. Me personally, I wrestled for ECW one night. I got paid from Paul Heyman and Todd Gordon one time. A tag team with Hack Myers against the Harris Twins, and that was enough for me. I mean, the fans in Philadelphia are just absolutely amazing people, but they are just, we're like ravenous. You get out there, and they just want to see blood, and they don't care what you got to do to do it. And that just wasn't my style.
Well, you know, Bobby, you just answered one of my questions I was going to ask you about what it was like in ECW. You already answered that one. I want to ask you though, back to the photography real quick. How many pictures would you say that you make within a span of a day of bands like Poison, Def Leppard, and the bands that you do photography for?
I just edited out the pictures because I had a magazine article that they needed it to get cleared and whatever. I edited Baltimore only, just the one show, and I had almost 4 gigs of pictures from. Let's see, Def Leppard was a 2-hour set, Poison was a 1-hour set, and I think Tesla was 45 minutes.
Goodness.
So for those 3 sets, I had almost 4 gigs of pictures to go through.
Wow.
I try to explain to people, you know, when you get out of the business, a lot of the guys, they just don't know what to do with themselves, and they're used to that attention, and they're used to that pop from the people, and you hear that enormous pop. See, if you're just an indie guy and you've never been anywhere other than small independent shows, you don't understand what I'm talking about. But like when I was 19 years old, I wrestled the Road Warriors in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada for the WWF in front of 22,000 people, and when the song played, "Oh What a Rush," the place exploded, and you're standing in the middle of the ring like, holy shit, like what's about to happen? And it happened to me many times in my career, but then, you know, at different times with different guys, but you have to replace that somehow as the career starts to wind up. I mean, I still wrestle here and there. I do a lot of guest appearances. I do some referee spots, stuff like that. But in no way do I want to or could I continue to do what I've done for the last 28 years. It's just, you know, your body starts to give out. And the problem is I got cornholed into doing TV, and the people, the producers, liked what I did. I mean, the wrestling fan has to understand, in order to make a mega star, and I'm not talking about today's stars, there's a major difference, and I'll explain that in a minute. But, excuse me, in order to create a star, you need to see them on television, weekly or bi-weekly, doing their moves, okay? Not someone in the second match stealing Jake's DDT when he's in the 5th match, or someone doing the high cross body off the top rope in the opening match when Ricky Steamboat's the main event. That's what's wrong. That's what's wrong with wrestling today. No one is original. No one takes the time to go, okay, I'd like to do this, this, and this. Raven told me best. Take 4 to 6 moves. Learn those 6 moves. Learn them very well and learn how to do them from different positions. Then, if you're a real worker, you fill in the spots in between those moves. If you have 6 moves, I have 6 moves, there's 12. Put real working, wrestling working in between that, and you've got a 20-minute match. You know, now of course for TV that doesn't work. I mean, TV has to be faster. But, you know, I got like cornered in that because I could take a guy that was of average skill sometimes and make him look 100 times better than what he was. At the same time, I also got great matches during my career with guys like Sting and Ricky Steamboat and even the Road Warriors. The Road Warriors never did a lot, but the thing that it was is to get through it without getting killed, that took talent. You know, the kids of the day go, oh, you got squats. It's like, okay, you get in the ring with them and show me what you can do. Because when Hawk hits you with a clothesline, Hawk, the guy has the soul, is a good friend of mine. Let me tell you something, brother. It's like a cinder block brick hitting you in the face. But if you know how to work, It's not. It's just. I'm a magician. You know, and a lot of the older guys are saying that now. The thing is, I'm a magician. You don't need to know how I do my tricks. All you need to do is sit back and enjoy the trick. That, too, in the business today, everybody wants to expose something. Everybody knows what the business is about. You know, when Vince McMahon came out and tried to save tax money up in what was it, I think New Jersey or New York, he exposed the entire business. And it's like no matter what you say or do, everybody now thinks they know everything. I know how that's done, or I know how. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. I wanted to touch on a point. Touch on something you said. You know, Raven. I met Raven in 2011 at the NWA Legends Fan Fest, and Raven is one of the nicest individuals I think I've ever met in my entire life. He's just an all-out, nice, great, wonderful person. And another thing you mentioned, getting in the ring with Road Warriors and Sting, and I wanted to ask you, what was it like wrestling Sting? Because I believe on your first night when you wrestled Sting, and something very rare, I believe that Sting hoisted you up above on his shoulders after the match was over.
No, he didn't put me on his shoulders. I knew what you were talking about.
Okay.
I had gotten hurt a few weeks earlier. I blew my knee out, and when I got to center stage that day, I had the one and only international title match in the United States, because when he went to Japan, like right after that show, he jumped on a plane, went to Japan. It was when Rick Rude got his neck broken and they stopped dealing with that title or whatever.
I remember that.
But they gave me a shot on television for the international world title, which, come on, I'm wrestling Sting. But what you're trying to get out is he didn't put the Scorpion Deathlock on me. And it was a very strange thing. In fact, I think he caught some heat backstage for it. But it was kind of one of them things. When we were talking, I told him, I said, bro, my knee is trashed. Because we had a coach at the time, and Chuck Tasha, our coach, was taping my knee up like ridiculously. And he's like, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "I'll be fine." I said, "I'm just gonna watch my knee." And then out of nowhere, because let's just say the Scorpion Deathlock was in my future, and I knew that. And I said, "Went out there, you know, you gotta work. I gotta get paid, pay the mortgage, you know." And but Sting wasn't like a lot of the other guys. He was really smooth to work with, and he was just it's one of those things. You're either gonna get somebody that's very smooth, that knows the dance, or a crowbar that comes in there and kills you. And I'm not going to mention names, but I've been in the ring with a lot of those guys. And it's you know, but Jody Hamilton trusted me, the Masked Assassin, who was our agent at the time, trusted me to work with just so many different styles, so many different people. I'll give you, for instance, Alex Wright. He's from Germany. He's the Dutch Wonder Kid or whatever. He would come out and do this dance, and people would either love it or they would shit on it. But when he first came in, I had one of his first matches. He could barely speak English. You know, much like when I wrestled Jushin Thunder Liger, Liger didn't know English hardly at all. He could understand it, but he couldn't speak it. So you would talk to him through Sonny Ono. And when I walked in the ring down in Orlando at the national TV tapings or whatever at Disney, I'm thinking, I'm wrestling one of the biggest stars in Japan. I can't communicate with him at all. You know, because I can't understand what the hell he's saying. And I talked to Sonny, and we had gotten like 2 or 3 things straight that he would give me code word basically for, and I would know what he's about, what's going on. And it's an amazing thing, man. The pro wrestling business is one of the only businesses I know that has just been beat to death. It's been raped, it's been strangled, it's been shot 4 or 5 times, and it's still alive. If you watch Monday Night Raw, and don't take this the wrong way, I don't want the fans to either, hear me out and understand, it's not the same thing. Today's pro wrestling isn't pro wrestling, it's entertainment. I never wanted to be in entertainment. I like being an entertainer. Big difference. You know, as a professional wrestler, you entertain the fan. As an entertainer, that's all you do. They sprinkle wrestling around entertainment. We wrestled with a little bit of entertainment sprinkled in. There's a major difference there. That's
true, and you know, I'm gonna say something. You know, I miss the days of Superstars of Wrestling. Joe Pedicino and Bonnie Blackstone came on UPN 69 back before it was a CW, and they had.
You're talking about down there in Atlanta when they had that 6-hour wrestling spot.
Yes,
Ago,
I used to love.
Yeah.
Yes, I used to love that. Used to love that because that.
The guy that trained me had videotapes of that, and that's the only time I ever got to see Continental Wrestling. I mean, I've seen it since then. I don't know if you remember Chad Austin from ECW. He's a very close friend of mine.
Chad Austin.
He has thousands of DVDs. It's absolutely amazing. He's got one of the biggest collections I've ever seen. So I've seen Continental since then. But to watch that 6-hour block in Atlanta with Bonnie Blackstone and what the hell is his name?
Joe Pedicino.
Joe Pedicino. Yeah, it was amazing that the ratings that they got for 6 straight hours of wrestling. It was amazing.
And then you had the late Samuel F. Kent. You remember him? Like Uncle Sam?
It doesn't ring a bell, but if I saw him on tape, I might remember him.
Okay.
You remember, bro, I've met and seen a lot of things over the years with this whole wrestling game.
Oh, yeah.
I missed stuff. There used to be a thing, and you were talking about Raven, by the way. You do know Scotty lives in Atlanta. He's right there by you somewhere. I don't know exactly where, but I know he's living in Atlanta.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know that. I did try. I have tried contacting Scotty before, and I called the number, and this lady answered. I said, "Hey," I said, "Is Scotty there?" And she said, "No." She said, "He hasn't lived here for a long time." She said, he got his number changed or something, so he didn't have the same number. She said she got calls all the time on her number asking to book Scotty and stuff, but she said it was wrong number.
If I know Scotty, that's a great rib. He just kept giving that number out. If you need to get in touch with him for your show, use his Twitter.
Okay.
I know he reads his Twitter.
Okay.
Anyway, there used to be a wrestling company in Georgia that the man that originally trained me was Bad Boy Ricky Lawless. A guy named Jim Leon, who was later murdered actually before my training was even finished.
Oh man.
But he wrestled for a company in Georgia on and off called Peach State Wrestling.
Yes, I know of Peach State. Shane Knowles runs that company.
Right, and this is long ago, so I'm sure it was a different owner at that time. But Peach State Wrestling was an outlaw company that when I saw the videotape, I was just totally amazed because at the time, remember, when I got in the business, there wasn't a whole lot of outlaw companies. There was hardly any in the north. Down south, they were scattered around, but then you had Memphis, and you had Continental, and you had Florida, and you had all these different promotions running, but they didn't have the little independent places or whatever that would run like their once-a-month show. So watching that stuff, Peach State, Atlanta, Georgia, man, I tell you, if there's one place I miss, and as strange as it sounds, I miss going to center stage every week. I miss the Ramada, which is no longer a Ramada, out on good Lord, right by the airport there. And there was a Waffle House out front, and the lady that ran it was so nice. She was just coming back from the bar at 4 o'clock in the morning when they closed, and she'd see us walking across the parking lot, and she'd start throwing the food on the grill, because she knew what we ate. We ate the same thing all the time back then. And I can't remember the name of the gentleman's establishment that we went to all the time. It used to be called the Oasis South. It was right by the airport. And Jack Hickory, who used to manage the sheep herders, ran the place. So all the boys would go over there. And it was just chicken wings and naked women and pro wrestling, and I miss it all.
Oh my goodness. How's Jack Victory doing? I ain't heard that name in a long time.
I haven't seen him. I saw a video on YouTube not long ago. It was one of the fan festivals he was at, and I saw him passing through it. Jack back in the day, boy, he took care of the boys. No matter if you have something good to say about him or bad to say about him, whatever your experience was, all I can tell you is when I came to Atlanta the first time, I was told about this bar, and the hotel boss took us there and would pick us up, like, to bring us home at 4 o'clock, and whenever the boys were in town, it was 10-cent wing night. It was, he would take care of the guys, make sure they got food, blah, blah, blah. I mean, the girls, that was a side thing. And honestly, I was friends with all the strippers. I mean, back in the day, the best way to catch a buzz was hanging out with a friggin' stripper. But it was like I wasn't trying to get in their pants, and they liked that. And it's like I wish I had a photo album get destroyed years ago. I had this humongous photo album. Everybody's like, how do you get pictures with strippers in the strip bar? You're not supposed to have cameras in there. I'm like, they're my friends. It's like, I'm not trying to get anything from them, and they're not really trying to get anything from me, but I understand that business. That business is just like wrestling. They just don't take bumps. But they go out there, they show their stuff, they do their thing. And in the South, where you live, unlike the North, the girls that worked at that bar lived like hours away. Like they would drive an hour and a half to work every day because they didn't want the people in their hometown knowing what they did for a living. And I understood that. You know, they had kids to feed. You know, I mean, it is what it is. But I miss Georgia and I miss Orlando, Florida. I had a blast doing TV in Orlando. I mean, we did TV all over the place. Macon, Georgia, Gainesville, Georgia, Marietta, what's the town out on the East Coast? I think it's Augusta. I mean, we did TV everywhere in Georgia. But, I mean, Florida was just, it was like a vacation. You just had to work for 15 or 20 minutes a day. You know, and we would go down there every 3 months. It was like everybody else goes, we're going on vacation this year. Oh, I saved up. I'm going to Florida. I'm like, no, this is the third time this year I'm going to Orlando. I go every 3 months. I stay for 10 days, which I thank Jody Hamilton. I've never gotten to really speak to him after the company sold out and stuff. I've never been able to get in contact with him.
Now, Jody Hamilton, that's the father of Nick Patrick, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And that one man I owe the biggest thank you to because I made a phone call to him. I was here in Baltimore, and I heard there was a TV taping coming to town. And I had worked for the NWA/WCW right before they merged. And I wrestled with King Koloff. Had a great match. Everybody was happy with everything. And then that was it. I had no other contact. Because that was through Larry Sharp, God rest his soul, in the Monster Factory. They had called, they needed some guys for TV, and I was one of the ones that got to go down to Salisbury, Maryland, wrestle Nikita. Jody sort of remembered it, kind of. I mean, he didn't remember names like that. I talked to him for about half an hour and explained to him I'm trying to break in, blah, blah, blah. And if it wasn't for Jody Hamilton, Playboy, Bobby Star, Other Robot, all that bullshit names that they gave me, Bob Star would have never existed at WCW. Between Dave Penzer, the ring announcer, who was helping book guys, and Jody Hamilton, but Jody was the boss.
Now let me ask you this question. Back in September 18th of 1988, what did it feel like for you making your wrestling debut against a guy named Tim Tyson?
In Hampton, Virginia. I remember that. That was an interesting road trip. That was the guy that broke me into the business. They were Ricky Lawless. He was working with two really big black guys, and I don't know their names. They went by the Ugandi Warriors. They were doing it. They had sold a show to the military base, and they needed extra bodies. Some people had canceled. And it's a very funny story. And actually, I've never even got to sit down with the man and explain to him, but Bob Holly, Hardcore Holly, when he broke into the business, at some point, his name was Hollywood Bob. Hollywood Bob Holly. So when I got to the building that night, these guys didn't know who Jimmy was bringing. It was me, Tim Tyson, Axel Rotten, Dave DeWade was a referee, and I think there was one other guy. But when we got there, the poster was hanging up in the dressing room. And I'm looking at it, and we were asking him, what matches he had, and the guy was like, well, we haven't made up our mind what we're doing yet. I'm like, well, my name's Bob, so why don't you let me fill in this thing, this Hollywood Bob character or whatever. And I have roots to Hollywood, California. I have family out there, and I spent a lot of my time out there as a kid. So they just let me do that. And Tim Tyson is a local tough guy from here in Baltimore, did a lot of tough man competitions and stuff like that. And then he got in the wrestling game or whatever. And it was funny, man. To tell you the truth, I would give anything. And I know someone out there has a videotape. I specifically remember people setting video cameras up in the top of the bleachers, taping the show. I've never seen it. And that was my first official match under an athletic commission. And I'll tell you a funny story behind that. Last year, I applied to get my Virginia wrestling license back because I hadn't had one in years. And I sent the lady the paperwork. and I'm waiting, the show's coming. I'm like, holy Christ, I got to call this promoter and tell him, if this license doesn't come, I can't work. So I said, let me call the commission. And I call the lady, and it's an older lady that answers the phone. And I'm talking to her for a few minutes. She goes, yeah, we have a problem. I said, well what is that? I've never been arrested. I've never been in trouble. What could possibly be the problem? She said, well, on this application, it says you're about to be 45 years old. I said, yes, ma'am. My birthday is September 24th. She said, but according to our records, you're 71. And I'm like, well,
oh my goodness.
That all goes back to that show that you're talking about for the Uganda Warriors, because I was only 15 years old. So what's funny is you can't wrestle at 15 years old. So Jimmy's like, just bullshit up. Put a date on the damn paper and get beat down with the commission. So I don't even remember. I just wrote it on the paper and didn't get nothing else on it. Boom, license granted. Got my license that night, and I actually had it since then a few times, but they never said anything. But I guess this one woman came through the paperwork, thought she would, be nosy, and like an license. She's like, oh, okay, well, it's not like we can suspend you now, but you really shouldn't have did that. And next thing I know, I get my license in the mail like 3 days later. I know it's a corny story, but I just think it's hilarious because when she said I was 70, I'm like, I feel 70. Not really.
That's crazy. That's crazy. That's funny too, though. I mean, that happened, but hey, at least you got your wrestling license.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing that was, nobody. Back in that day, the wrestling business was such a closed-door thing. Not everybody got in the business like today. Today, anyone, whether they're 120 pounds or they're 500 pounds, can walk into any wrestling school almost anywhere in this country with $3,000 and they'll be a pro wrestler. And that's what's wrong with the business. I have nothing wrong with these guys, these high spot monkeys, these guys that just do spot after spot, because they don't understand what it's about. They watch someone else, like Rey Mysterio Jr., who I have a lot of respect with. I wrestled him too. And they went, wow, that's neat. Let me see if I can copy that, and I'll just call it something different. And then they copied another move, and then they said, well, shit, I can do that move and that move one after another. That's the problem. There's no work to that. That's just a continuous spot that nobody remembers. Yes, the crowd will pop, and you think you're a big bad pro wrestler, and 20 minutes later, the next guy does the same exact shit, and nobody remembers what you did because they just saw somebody else do it. By the end of the night, they've seen 45 Hurricanranas, they've seen all these other flips and all this other shit. You got 3 guys going to the hospital because they got hurt. What is that? That's not pro wrestling. Pro wrestling back in the day when I learned, you went out there and it was move for move. It was a competition. Whether we know who wins or loses, that is not even important. How you get to that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. Now let me ask your thoughts on something. You was talking about copying people. Because I've always felt this way about this individual. Now I want to see how you feel. Do you feel that Jack Swagger basically has copied Kurt Angle? I mean, how do you feel about that?
Absolutely not, and I'll tell you one reason why.
Okay.
Kurt Angle is an Olympic wrestler. Jack Swagger is a college wrestler. Two totally different worlds. Even though it's the same type of thing. It's 2 totally different gimmicks. See, that's where the line of the gimmicks back in the day were playing cut, the Road Warriors, Sting. Everybody used to give Sting shit because he wore makeup and him and Warrior, and, that was the Road Warriors gimmick, blah, blah, blah. Well, okay, cool. Yeah. But see, they did 2 different things. Sting was wrestling Ric Flair all the time. The Road Warriors, every once in a while, would get a match with Flair, but normally their MO was come to the ring, beat the hell out of somebody, and you're out of there as fast as possible. They never stayed. They weren't the guys that overstayed their welcome like these kids are now. That okay, well he went 10, so I'll go 12, and next thing you know, there's a 35-minute main event that should be like 5 minutes.
That's true.
I was told a long time ago. Just because the gimmick looks kind of the same, that doesn't mean like I understand what you're saying. Jack Swagger actually. The first time I ever saw that man live was in Baltimore at a SmackDown show. I took my ex's daughter as a Christmas present. I hadn't been to a house show in 15 years. And I'm looking around, I'm like, holy shit, this is not what I remember. And he was the heavyweight champion. And he come out, and I'm watching him, and I'm going, this kid gets it. But the problem is, in that day's wrestling versus mine, he was doing what he was told to do. We did what we thought was best for the gimmick. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. So back, what you're saying is, back then, y'all basically had more control over, what you come out and say, what you could do. But now they're kind of given a script or whatever and told to do this and do that, and you got to do this and act this way and look this way and all that other stuff.
Well, I've never seen the papers, but I've heard about it, WWE or whatever. Everything. You do nothing that they don't know about. And then if they hand you a script for an interview and you don't get it word for word correctly, you can get chewed out. Well, wait a minute. I remember a time and day when they would say, you got 45 seconds, you're wrestling Black Bart, it's at the Tingley Coliseum in Albuquerque, go. And you talk about wrestling Black Bart at Tingley Coliseum in Albuquerque, New Mexico for 45 seconds. And when the man counts you down, he gives you like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you're done. And you make it sound good, because if it doesn't sound good, you're not going to put asses in the seat. If the asses aren't in the seat, you don't get paid. So, nowadays, everything, like, the one thing I miss the most, and the one thing I think draw more to the house shows, would be individual market interviews, which are, like, for your town, for Atlanta, like, say, Atlanta, Georgia, or Marietta, or whatever. Back in the day, on your local television show, on the syndicated show, there would be special interviews cut for every single town. Now, of course, this takes forever. Like, they would do them from Korea. I watched Renee Goulet did a shoot interview for RF Video, and it was very insightful because to listen to Renee talk, I remember everything he was talking about, but like the amount of hours they would spend with Mean Gene doing one after another interview, or how they would have to go get Hogan from his room to come in for half an hour because Hogan's headlining, of course, everywhere in the country. Every single market got an interview. And God forbid you screw the interview up because then you got to retake the damn thing. However, I think that's missing in the business today. It's just like, I'll give you an idea. If you drive down the street down there in Atlanta, okay, and you see a poster on a telephone pole, and it shows 2 matches and a couple of names underneath it, whatever, 7 o'clock wrestling Friday night. Then you turn on your local news or a TV show that's local, whatever, and a commercial pops up, and a wrestler's there, and, their version of Mean Gene, because everybody has their version of Mean Gene, is talking to him, and he's like, Atlanta, Georgia, center stage, I'm coming there. That draws people in. Just to look at a poster on a phone pole or possibly an ad on the internet, that doesn't, even on the internet, and I have tried to explain to the local promotions here in Maryland and in Pennsylvania and stuff, even on the internet, you can still cut interviews and post them. And any of your fans that tune into your website or check your website, it will draw more people into the building. There's certain people in the wrestling business that literally, if you hand them a microphone, they just bring them in. Bring them by door. It just brings them in, But in today's entertainment, they don't care about house shows. The only reason they have house shows is to offset the reason that they're paying these guys all this money. I guarantee you, WWE doesn't need house shows. Between Monday Night Raw, the revenue that's stirred up from Monday Night Raw, the revenue that comes from SmackDown, and now the revenue from the WWE Network. You understand, pay-per-view, WrestleMania this year, I looked at my cable box, just out of curiosity. And I push the little button and I say WrestleMania and it pops up on the screen. And it shows that WrestleMania is $79.95.
Oh my goodness.
So hold on, it's $80 for the pay-per-view. And because I live in a state with a state athletic commission, they charge a tax for viewing it, which is complete horseshit. We've fought that for years, but they still have it. Then you pay the local tax on the event. It's almost like you're paying for a ticket to be at the building, okay? But the thing of it is, with the WWE Network, say they would get 50,000 knives at $80 a piece. Instead, they got 500,000 1,000 people paying $10 a month for equipment that's already set up. It was a humongous setup fee to put the network together and for all the people that are employed there. They do that. Network is the most phenomenal thing I've ever seen. However, they're so far behind, it's ridiculous. There's so many libraries that they've bought that they just sit on. Continental, Memphis, all this wrestling that they could almost do a Legends tour like 4 times a year across the country with the legends that still can go. I mean, the Rock and Roll Express, Ricky Morton works still to this day 4 or 5 nights a week, every single week. I don't know how he finds the shows, but he does.
That's right. I'll tell you, Ricky Martin, I had Ricky Martin on here a couple months ago. Ricky and Robert Gibson, they're still going just like they was back in the 70s and 80s. I mean, they're still wrestling like spring chickens in the ring, and I mean, they're doing an awesome job. I mean, I've never in my life seen a wrestling tag team like Ricky and Robert that can keep going like that. I mean, that's great. What they're doing, and you brought up something I wanted to ask you about real quick. Why is Continental Wrestling not on the network? Because I sure did love that wrestling.
The only thing I can think of, honestly, number one, most of the guys are no longer with us. Number two, it was a bloody territory. Every time I ever saw Continental Wrestling and stuff, there was blood flying all over the place. I saw a match, and one match burned into my memory. It was Brad Armstrong against Jerry Stubbs. There was blood everywhere, in the ring, on the floor, on the table. It was amazing to watch. And you really believed, well, Bray was real. I mean, he was cut open. But an artery got cut or whatever, and he bled everywhere. And it was funny because they had that interview set that would sit off to the side in the Coliseum or whatever, and they would do live interviews. And they took him in the back, and they wrapped his head up, and he comes out to do a promo. And during the promo, it starts to bleed right back through all the bandages. Next thing you know, they start fighting again, blood everywhere again. It was amazing, but I think that kind of stuff, and not every match was like that, but a lot of the main events were. I think that may keep it from the network, which really will suck because, Vince spent a lot of money on buying that tape thing or whatever, and for the old school fans like myself, that kind of wrestling, I would actually sit down and watch the whole show start to finish.
Monday Night
Raw every night. Monday Night Raw every night in my house is on, and the DVR is running in case something happens and I miss it, and I'm usually sitting on Facebook or doing other stuff, and I'll go back and push the fast forward button through the commercials and the bullshit and the 15-minute opening to every single show that's all talking now. I swear to God, I will completely flip out if they did something, they started with a hot opening, which means the match is already in the ring going. And every once in a while, WCW would do it, but the NWA would do it all the time.
Yeah, I remember that.
They would go off the air with a match still in the ring. Oh my God, we gotta go! David Crockett. It's like, just give us a little bit of the old school back. Make people. It all goes back to the fact that they don't need house shows and they could care less about house shows because when the day, and just one spot I remember, that Jim Cornette hit Baby Doll with a tennis racket on television. And they went off the air as all this chicanery is going on. Well, that night in Baltimore was a house show with the Midnight Express, okay, and Magnum and Dusty, and Baby Doll was in Baltimore. You know what I mean? But they kept her in the dressing room. She never came out. The fans in Baltimore wanted to kill Jim Cornette because they hurt Baby Doll. You know what I mean? And because they just saw it on TV, people never realized that what you're seeing on TV is not live unless it says it's live. All the shows back then were always taped. So that was taped like a week ago, earlier in the week. So these people were showing up Saturday night at the Baltimore Civic Center at the time, and they wanted to kill Jim Cornette. That's what he did. The business doesn't have it anymore because they're laughing at you instead of giving you heat. Last week on Monday Night Raw, I actually paid attention. It's rare, but the thing they did was Strowman. I don't think Strowman knows enough about the business or has not been around long enough to carry it all the way out. I hope some of the guys like Arn Anderson and stuff and Al Snow or whatever help him out. But he got heat. You know, that it's such a rarity. You see real heat. I'll give you one even better. When Roman Reigns walked out on TV the day after WrestleMania, that's heat.
Yeah.
When wrestling fans will sit down behind their computer and put a what the hell do they call it? Now I'm going to sound like a dumbass. Everybody was signing it to have Roman Reigns fired. Are you?
Petition? Petition?
Yeah, the petition. He's only doing what the hell he's told to do, you dumbass. That's what he did. You know, and the reason he got that heat is because everybody loved The Undertaker. Because at one time or another, you were either scared of him or you were a fan of him.
Yeah.
So everybody respects Taker. I respect Taker. I worked on shows with him quite a lot. And I'm going to tell you what, if Taker was there, a lot of things would be different. You know? Because, like, you only see the rumors and stuff that Taker ran the dressing room and Taker was the bitch. He was, and everybody respected it. You know, unlike today. And now with this JBL bullshit, okay, here's the deal. If the announcer guy can't take the heat, pack their shit and go somewhere else. That is old school wrestling. That's the way the business always was. Because to do what we do on that level, where you're on the road every single day, JBL's a freaking announcer, and he's probably on the road 4 days a week, just trying to get to the building, do the show, and then to get back home to the building. You know, God forbid he's got to go up to Stamford, Connecticut and do something, post after the show's over or whatever, because then he's on the road all week. To do that kind of stuff, it takes a special kind of person. And you're going to have the college chicanery games bullshit going on backstage. It's always been that way. If it doesn't you have to police your own. You know, in the last 10 years, think about all the guys that have been arrested, and it's all over TMZ and this and that. That shit didn't happen back when I started. The boys policed themselves. If somebody was getting out of hand, you took care of it. You know, and it's like, but I feel sorry for the guy in a way because me personally, I thought he was a good announcer. I didn't know he couldn't take the heat, and he jumped out of the kitchen. But the thing of it is they're trying to make this big deal out of it. It's no different than any college campus anywhere in the country. Okay? It's a bunch of guys and girls, and now they use young people. Back when I was there, you had Dick Murdoch, you had Ivan Koloff, you had the older guys, you know, and the older guys would teach the younger guys. Now everybody up there is young. Who's really old on that roster, or who's the oldest on the roster? And most of the guys that are older are just trying to keep a job. You know, wrestling isn't like it was. When I got into business, I mean, I had grand plans and thoughts and dreams that I was going to be a big superstar and all this other shit. I was in one way, because I can still go to a lot of places in this country and people look right at you and go, I'm a star. It's like, really? I thought I got rid of that. But it's cool. But the thing of it is they're kids. They don't know any better. Just like Paige with the naked stuff. Dude, I did stuff my second year in the business that would make that video, the videos were released, look like nothing. You know what the difference was? We didn't have video cameras. And when we got video cameras, there were certain things we didn't take. You know, check your shit at the door for coming to my room. You know what I mean? And people, it's so funny because it caught on fire right before WrestleMania. Everybody sharing the videos, the pictures, talking about it, blah, 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 blah. Then all of a sudden, Vince said, that's enough. And it just completely gone. Nobody talks about it anymore. You know, and here's the thing. She wants to be with Alberto Del Rio. More power to him. He got himself a nice young girl. I thought she was hot all along because she's real. The thing, I mean, sure, I like to see a set of big boobs too, fake ones, but at the same time, what I really like is a real girl that has her own parts. You know what I'm saying? And that was her. And she could work her ass off too. But she has made her own decisions, and because of the way the business runs today up there with the medical doctors and all this, she didn't have none of that shit. If I was there and I put my finger wrestling somebody, guess what? You take that finger to the next one, you get your ass out of the ring the next night you work. And you take care of it on the road, you take care of it when you get home. Oh, poor baby, your back hurts, you can wrestle, and then we'll maybe put some ice on it later. Now, you break a finger, you're out. You get a concussion, goodbye, you're out. Dude, I saw people walk around like zombies in dressing rooms because they had taken a finish every night, Like Louis Piccoli told me one time about wrestling Ahmed Johnson. He said, Bob, he goes, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, what do you mean? He said, I've been pissing blood for 2 weeks. He goes, this is not normal. He said, that finish kills me every night. He goes, not to mention just working with him, period, kills me because he's a stiff bastard. I don't know, Ahmed. I've never had to work with him neck first. I had enough of my own stiff guys to work with. But
Now
that's the way the business always was.
Now I got a question for you. Can you tell everybody about how Dwayne Gill convinced you to go on tour with the WWE?
Well, I mean, it was funny. If you're talking about my first, are you talking about the do TV, or are you talking about to go on the road with him?
I'm talking about when you owned the car dealership and he convinced you to go on tour with WWE.
No, I didn't know. I worked for a car dealership.
Okay.
It's a funny story. I had finally got health insurance. I'd never had health insurance in my whole life.
Uh-huh.
And I signed all the paperwork, and they brought me in and said, oh, they explained I've been here long enough, blah, 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 blah. Here's your paperwork. I signed all the paperwork, and I'll be damned if it wasn't a week later. Dwayne calls me out of nowhere. And we hadn't done TV in 6 months. Like, they were all on the West Coast, so, whatever. And I did a call from WCW the week before. Hey, can you come to Atlanta and Dothan or whatever? Absolutely no problem. Went to my boss. Said, hey, look, I told you when you hired me, this is what I do. I said, they need me to go to Atlanta. He said, no problem. He goes, you haven't been nowhere in a long time. Go ahead and go do your thing. So I go down and I wrestle my matches down there, and I come home, and I'm sitting out back. I'll never forget it. It was a Saturday morning. We went in early. And I hear my name over the broadcast system. And, Bob picked up the line, whatever. Okay. So I go grab a phone. There's a phone. It's Dwayne. He's like, Bob, grab your shit. It's time to go, baby. You're hired with the WWE. We're doing house shows.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, no. I said, Dwayne, man, I'm at work, bro. I can't just leave. He goes, you got to be in Pittsburgh. The show starts at 7:30. We got to be there at 6:30. I'm going, this is like 7 o'clock in the morning. And Dwayne's already like, he drank 20 cups of coffee. I'm like, Dwayne, I just got home from a trip. I can't just leave. He's like, Bob. And this is after I've hung up on him 2 or 3 times, and he called back. And I keep hearing my name over the announce system, and I mean, my boss keeps hearing it too, and I'm thinking, he's going to get me in trouble. So I'm like, he goes, Bob, you're going to make more money in the next 5 days doing what you love than you're going to make in the next 2 months working at that place. Get in your car, go home, get your shit, we're going on the road. So I finally said, all right, let me go talk to my boss. And I went up, and, of course, my boss said, listen, if you go, I'm going to have to let you go, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, here's the deal. I've been trying to get into this and do this like this all my life. There's always going to be another job making $9.50 or whatever the hell it was an hour. I'm really sorry, but I hate to leave the show, but I got to go. And he's like, I totally understand, dude. I just want to make sure you know, when you come back, there's not going to, I'm like, dude, see you later. I left the work at a place called Glen Burnie, Maryland. My house was like 20 minutes away. I had enough time to run like hell to get home, run in my house, and it was the day after Christmas. So like, I got this big travel bag for Christmas, and all I did was take Zubas and workout shirts and wrestling tights and cram them in the bag, double pair of wrestling boots, a couple of rain jackets. And by the time I did that, as fast as I could, he was sitting out front with Barry Hardy waiting for me. And away we went. And I did a week's worth of house shows wrestling Nikolai Volkov when he was with Ted DiBiase. I forget what the hell they called him at the time, but it was a $1 million corporation thing. And what had happened was, the truth behind the story, was X-Pac's wife got sick and she was pregnant. Well, of course, he wasn't going to leave her and go on the road. He had to say, I understood, and I agree, and I would do it today. But he wasn't leaving. So at the last minute, Tony Garea called Dwayne and said, listen, we need somebody to open the show. And before he could even finish saying, he goes, let me call Bob Starr. And Tony knew me because I did TV up there before. And we went on the road, and every night I wrestled Nikolai Volkov, and every night Rene Goulet and Tony Garea apologized to me and said I did a good job, and they'll see me soon. Let's just say, Nikolai Volkov's one of the nicest guys in the world. But he needs to wrestle complete old school to make it work. Because it's like, to wrestle a young guy, he kind of killed me. I mean, in these spots, we had a good time, and I didn't get hurt. That's all I was worried about. But that tour was my first with the WWE, and the whole house show thing, learning what a rat was, that was great. When you walk out of a building you've never been to, in a town you've never been to, and you're not even announced on the card, and there's girls sitting on the trunk of your car waiting for you. It's like, wow. And that was how I was like born into the whole rock star thing, because there was no difference between rock and roll and wrestling when it comes to touring. It's the exact same thing. Set it up one night, wrestle, tear it down, go to the next city. Same thing with a rock concert, except that they're not taking, like I told you, they don't take bumps. You know, but the girls and the parties and it was just an amazing time. And I added that to Dwayne. My WCW stuff is all Jody Hamilton. My WWF, because I've never worked for WWE. WWF stuff was all Dwayne.
I said WWF because you know how they changed it to WWE. I know you didn't work for WWE, but you know.
Well, I'm one of the guys. I make sure people understand that. I don't know what it's like in WWE. I have never been to a show at WWE.
Yeah.
Okay? I worked for the WWF, and I was proud of it. And, like, you know, it's just, I don't know, man. And some people laugh when I do these interviews because I get caught up in memories and thinking, and it's like, it's not the same. When I used to walk into an airport, and they would give me these shitty coach airplane tickets, and you go up to the counter, and it was something I learned from the boys, and I'll never forget. You take your briefcase and sit it on the counter, and you open the briefcase, and you always keep your 8x10s right there. And the girl or the guy behind the desk would be like, "Oh, you're a pro wrestler? Yeah, would you like a picture? Sure, what's your name?" Sign the picture up. Oh, and 99% of the time, if there was a ticket available in first class, my fat happy ass was sitting in first class. Because they would just bump you up, because they could do that back then. This before 9/11 and all this craziness and stuff. That's like the other day. All this talk about this Chinese guy that they drove off the airplane. But let me explain something to you. That airplane belongs to that airline. I don't give a shit if you bought a ticket or not. This is my airplane. I have to get my employees to wherever. I asked you to get up, and you refused. Now, the thing I don't agree with is how the airport police handled it. You know, so make the plane late. Actually, what they should have done is just said, "Ladies and gentlemen, we need to free up 2 seats on this plane. For you giving you up your seat and getting home late, we'll give you an extra free round-trip airplane ticket anywhere in the U.S. that you want to go." That's how I did my vacations when I went for WCW and wrestling. Because I would volunteer all the time to get on my seat. I don't got nothing to do when I get home. I just $800 free plane ticket, you know? And it's like, I used to have a stack of them damn things. But it's just, you know, like I said, these times have changed, and the business needed to change. I agree with that. Because guys were dying. You know, I mean, just flat out, they were dying. And if the business didn't change, there would be a lot more of them that were dead. But it's, like I said, I'm a wrestler. I was trained to be a pro wrestler. I got into the wrestling business with hopes of retiring from the business. You know, not having to go get a job and work in a warehouse or drive a truck or whatever. I didn't understand that part because I'll be totally honest with you. If I would have thought of that part of it, I probably would have never went as far as I did. Because, you know, I don't want to punch a time clock and get a 40-hour paycheck or to make a halfway decent wage, you got to work 70 hours a week, which I've done for the past 10 or 12 years. You know, it's I get paid. I made more money at my daytime job sometimes than I did on the road. You know, I made really good money on the road, but it's just, you know, you got to put 70 hours in a week. You know, and it's just, I don't know. I just hope that the stuff, for some reason, and it confuses me, but Shane McMahon, everybody, let me scramble this egg for you. Vince McMahon runs the company, period. Okay? Vince is God. That's the way it works in the WWE. But they split the brands, and Shane's got his TV show that he's on, and the other show is Hunter and Stephanie or whoever, like now String or whatever. But how come SmackDown always comes off as a better show? I just don't get that. And I mean, they had a couple stinkers, but in general, I just don't get it. Kind of like Hunter runs WWE Raw and he runs NXT, and the NXT shows, to me personally, not all the time, but a lot of the time, are better than the WWE Raw shows. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Because NXT, I haven't watched their weekly product in a while, but I always watch the big shows that they throw, like right before SummerSlam, right before Mania, stuff like that. And the shows are phenomenal. Even when there's people getting in the ring I've never even seen before, because I've missed them on their weekly show, they seem like they try harder, they work harder. You know, people on SmackDown, I'm not going to say they work more or less. They all work. You have to give 1,000% when you work for Vince. That's the way it works. But I don't get it. I really don't. And I think if they had old school bookers and agents in there that knew what the hell they were doing instead of these stupid ass story writers, you would see the houses come up. But wait, they don't care if the houses come up. I mean, yeah, sure. I'm sure Vince would like to make more money on house shows, but they don't concentrate enough on these houses. They don't have to. That's what the problem was. You know, we would shoot, when I worked for Vince, we would shoot Superstars and Challenge and Primetime would be cut off house shows. So you would go to an arena and they would take 3 or 4 weeks, sometimes 5 weeks if they were going overseas. They would take 5 one-hour TV shows, which are actually like 41 minutes or something a piece. Because you have to add in commercials or whatever. But they would take at least 3. You know, and then back when there was Saturday night's main event, they would throw that in there. So you would take all this stuff in one night, and then you don't see a TV camera again for 3 weeks. Because then you go out and make money on house shows. And I don't know. I just don't get it. I mean, there's still some things after being in the business 28 years that I still just don't get. And I mean, I would think the amount of talent that they have there right now, they could be running 4 or 5 shows a night easily, and still have the shows loaded.
Oh yeah,
but they don't choose to do it.
They could. I got about 3 more questions for you in the interview, and then I'm gonna wrap it up.
All right, brother, shoot.
Okay. Tell us about what it was like during the Monday Night Wars. What was that like?
Absolutely phenomenal. All the stories that you heard about them watching the competition, I used to stand out of the TV truck at Monday Nitro, and it would be funny on the side of the production truck. There's 2 monitors, and you couldn't hear it. There was no audio, but you could see what those products were going side by side. And it was funny because for about 4 or 5 years at my house, I had 2 big screen TVs set up next to each other. And I'm watching at home the same way. It would be amazing that what Vince would do. Okay, WCW shows on, we're on commercial. What are they doing? Hogan's coming out of the ring. Holy shit, it's Stone Cold. Stone Cold's got to go now, you know?
Yeah.
And because they didn't have time to write it all down with writers and stuff like that. Stone Cold was probably supposed to be on late in the show. Bullshit, put him on right now, you know, because they're trying to draw that rating away from WCW and vice versa. It was so amazing, you know, the turnover. I mean, one week out at WCW, and it's full of Japanese people. And next week, there's no Japanese people, and there's Mexican people. And it just shit changed so fast and so much, and it was just going 100 miles an hour. And I tell you, I would give anything in the world for that to still be happening, because people respected the business back then. People, like you said, would spend that hard-earned money to come see them all the time. You know, I don't know what happened with WCW house shows, because there were so many guys there that only worked TV. They killed their house show business because, you know, I love the guys to death, but like a Scott Norton and Brian Adams Crush. I forget what the hell they called them at WCW, but those 2 were against the American males in the main event of the house show.
Brian, yeah, they called him Brian Adams. That's what it was in WCW.
It's like, what do you expect? I mean, all the guys, they were all good friends of mine, all great guys, but you're not going to draw a house with that. You need Hogan, you need Scott Hall, you need Kevin Nash, and actually Hall and Nash did a lot of house shows, but the very, very cream, the top of the line, they didn't do them. and like it destroyed that house show business. But I remember, like I said, when you worked for Vince, man, it was like it was. If you went down south, you wrestled. If you went up north, you might get bit by a bulldog, bit by a snake, bit by a friggin' whatever, that toucan-looking bird that Coco Beware had. I mean, it was two different worlds. Now, you still wrestled at WWF. Absolutely. But the thing of it was, the TV was more entertaining, where in the South, they took wrestling like that was a way of life. They took it seriously. So, like, you tell somebody in the South, oh, wrestling's fake, they're going to swing at it. You know, you go up north and they're, oh, yeah, that's really tough. You're not turning that on Monday night. And it's such a difference, you know. And that was one of the things, whether I be a job guy or whatever you want to say, I had the amazing experience of working for both companies. And people ask me, you know, all the time, what's it like working for Vince McMahon? He's such a dick. No, he's not. You remember, that's television. You know, now Vince is stern and he has certain rules and you will follow them because he's God. Bottom line, that's his company. He runs it. Now, I'm sure it's way different now that it's on the stock market and stuff because he has people to answer to too. But it's still his company. And then when you went to WCW, I couldn't tell you who the boss was. We had so damn many of them. I mean, Ted Turner owned it, but I was there when Dusty was in charge. I was there when Bill Watts was in charge. I was there when, Jesus Christ, what was
Eric Bischoff?
Yeah, well, Eric was the last one that was there when I was there, but the pizza guy, the dude that, I couldn't remember his name, but he was one of the bosses. Yeah, we had different bosses all the time. Like, you could go down there one week, and because I wasn't on top, like a Sting or whatever, you'd go in one week and shoot TV, and something's up in the boss. Oh, man, it's really cool. Catering was great. Let's do the match. Let's do the next town. Come back the following week, it's somebody totally different, doing something totally different. That's the only thing. I never had to deal with that kind of stuff because I was just there to get paid, man. I was there to work. You know, and that's the way I treated it. It's a job. You know, when I leave on Sunday night for Monday, I pack my shit and I got to go here, 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 and here, and I'll be home when I'm done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of the guys will tell you. A lot of the older guys will tell you, man, it was rough on relationships. That's for damn sure.
So, you know, Eric Bischoff was actually a former guest here on the show, and it was very good to have him on. I wanted to ask you, between Eric Bischoff and Vince McMahon, who did you enjoy working for the most?
Wow. Working for Vince, I was working for the greatest show on earth.
Uh-huh.
Working for Eric always treated me with respect. Every time he saw me, he shook my hand. He always had a smile. How are you? How's everything going? Me personally, I like Southern Towns. I like the guaranteed money. I like my check coming every 2 weeks. And, like, that's why I went to WCW. WWF never did a thing to me wrong. I mean, the guys were, I can't say they were tighter up there or stiffer up there, but it was just like, some of the guys just careless. You know what I mean? Because it's all about getting me over, screw you, and I don't care if you have a family or a thing. And I can't say many guys are like, but there was a couple of guys that were just careless. And if they didn't realize that I'm just trying to pay my mortgage too, you know, I just don't have that spot, I have this spot.
Yeah.
But working for either company, anybody that tells you, anybody that says that one's better than the other, at one time or another, my last shot with WWF was in State College, Pennsylvania, many years ago, back in the middle 90s, like 95 or 96, and I got paid well. I mean, ridiculously well to do that TV, to the point where I can tell you this. I know people on the road now that make less now than I did then. Dusty, I don't know if you're familiar with Dusty Wolf.
No, I don't know Dusty Wolf.
Well, Dusty's from I think it's San Antonio. He worked for Vince for a long time. He did house shows, he did TVs, he did all of it, and he did Doink for a little while. And he, like he said, I look at what some of these kids make today, and you look 20 years ago, 25 years ago, I was making more money then than I do now. Why? Because there ain't no competition no more. Now they go, this is what we're paying. If you don't like it, you don't have a job. You know, when WCW was there, WWE or WWF, whatever, and then you had Memphis, and then you had, you know, whatever, you had places to go. And I never got to go to Memphis. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because a lot of guys started in Memphis, but it was an amazing place to cut your teeth and learn your trade. You know, I had a lot of independents by that time up here around Maryland, New Jersey, PA, West Virginia, whatever. So I stayed busy. When WCW folded, I stayed busy, and my only job was a wrestler for about 6 years. And I did all that